Welcome back to the Simply Why podcast with Dennis and Katie. Katie, today we're going to talk about, well, let me ask you this question first. You're a co-founder of an RIA firm. Has anyone ever called you or emailed you wondering if they could buy your business?
Oh, geez. Yes, frequently.
Yeah, like
Very, very frequently.
in the last hour. We haven't checked. Well, we'll just have to go back and check our email. It's everywhere, right?
It is everywhere. And not just our industry, but across, and not even just professional services. There is so much activity that is happening with mergers and acquisitions and people just trying to solve for succession. We have a huge cohort of baby boomers entering into retirement that we've been talking about for a really long time.
Our whole careers.
Our whole careers. Yes. And we are seeing some of the pains of that, the challenges and the work being put into how to solve for that.
Right. And by succession, we're talking about just the founders, many times the founders of businesses wanting to retire/sell their businesses, and they're looking around and they don't have successors in place to acquire that, or the business is worth so much that the next generation can't afford to buy it. I mean, we talk about what the stock market does, but the value of privately held businesses has also gone up for a well-run business to the point where maybe it's not even palatable for the next gen to buy in.
Yeah, it's becoming a tricky environment. And it's interesting too, because, you and I are not baby boomers.
Squarely Gen X. Solidly.
Yes,
Gen
we
X.
are solidly Gen X.
Carrying the torch for the 90s.
We do put time and energy into thinking through the risks of our business and making sure that we have succession plans in place. But ideally, we're going to be here working at this for a number of years ahead of us. But a lot of, call it these aggregators that are buying firms, they have to buy a whole variety of firms in order to make it work. And so they might be purchasing firms where the owner is going to take that check and he's going to, walk right out that exit door and he's going to be done. And they're going to see that business slow down. They're going to see attrition with that client base. And so they are looking to us very frequently and saying, okay, who's growing fast? Who's growing well? Who's doing it right? Because we need to round out this portfolio of businesses. And so those aggregators, they are aggressively going after a lot of different types of firms in order to kind of round out that portfolio and pick up the slack and have a place for clients that feel like, all right, my advisor left me. Where do I go? They need a place to land.
These firms are backed by private equity. There are a lot of dollars chasing after solid businesses. I mean, whether it's the fee-based business of a financial advisor or an HVAC business or accounting firms in the professional services space, they're looking for a return on investment. They're coming in and offering to solve for succession planning. Like, we'll take over this. We'll give you the middle management support and just back office and everything else. But we're starting to see some cracks in this and what it means from a client perspective to have private equity coming in, buying firms, and what happens after that.
Yeah. So many times those private equity firms, I mean, they are in the business of making money as well, right? And so they need to make sure that they're making a solid purchase that can be profitable. And so often what happens is they try to get those profitability metrics through scale. And they say, all right, we're going to strip down the business that we just bought. We'll manage some things in-house our way, our technology, the way that we can do it in our mind as efficiently as possible.
Right.
And you are going to deliver to the end client what we give you to deliver.
Yes.
And the end client now is feeling that stress. They're getting a lot of change. The way that they were receiving information before is different. Who they were speaking with may be different. And that company that was purchased, they've been stripped down where they might not have the ability to provide that same level of customer service that their clients have become accustomed to. And so from the client service perspective, that is one of the big challenges that we are seeing now, we're witnessing, and in some cases, we're feeling ourselves.
And one of the things we love about being independent is, to a certain extent, we're calling the shots. And in the independent financial space, that was kind of That was what we hung our hat on for a long time, is that you know who's calling the shots. The irony is that some of these aggregators are starting to look more like the corporate model that we all wanted to rebel against a little bit. And clients sense that. We talk to people who say, I get the sense that my person isn't, somebody else is calling the shots now, and it's showing up in different facets of the client experience and not in a positive way.
It is. It is becoming challenging. We've had a lot of conversations recently just because we're coming out of tax season. We've had a lot of conversations with clients. How has your experience been? And I'm not trying to pick on the accountants in the room that may be listening to this, because I feel for the accounting industry and that they have had a very large group of CPAs that have retired or are retiring, and they're feeling the pinch, and they live by deadlines. Things have to be done in a certain amount of time. But I think through that shrinking of the professionals, the influx of somebody else running a number of facets of the business, and we can get into it further, but for any number of reasons, it is showing up negatively for the client. We've gotten a lot more feedback this year, I think, than previous years, of just the lack of communication,
Right.
mistakes that were made. And I do think that it's just a huge pinch that's happening with the convergence of a lot of events.
Yeah, it's private equity effectively telling a profession to do more with less.
Yes.
And the less is in something that's been happening for a long time. Like you said, a lot of CPAs retiring, not enough entering the profession. So there's an air pocket of not enough junior and mid-level CPAs to do the work. So it all flows uphill to some of the partners of these firms. I think there are parallels for what could be happening in the financial industry. The difference being, to your point, there's no deadline.
Right.
How do you know? So how do you know? Like on April 15th, you have to show the report card. And sometimes that means clients have to write a check. And that's going to capture their attention. So if there's a mistake, if they're finding things that were glossed over, or they're not getting the service they expected, or the communication, imagine a swamped accountant on April 10th getting a question from their client. It's going to be hard to get it done. And I feel that we don't have anything like that in our world. In a world where the markets are going up pretty steadily the last few years, it can mask over. So if we have private equity conflicts, potentially, increased adoption of technology, that's something we could talk about, and a shortage of professionals all converging at the same time, it could be messy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned technology. I mean, can't AI just solve for this?
Yeah, I think so.
That is another piece.
I'm going to have a bot sitting into my chair next week.
I do feel like that AI conversation is constant. We are constantly hearing it in our industry. Just as often as we get solicitations from private equity firms, aggregators, other firms that want to purchase us, just as often we are getting solicitations from new pieces of technology, a new AI that will solve for something new. And I like to think of our firm as being very technology forward. I think that we are good adopters of technology. We are try to use the technology as efficiently and integrated as possible so that it's showing up for the client in the right way. But I think what we're seeing is, or what we've learned to be true for us, is we have to get the foundational pieces right. And it's in technology in for us in our mind should be a layering process. Get the foundation, get the workflows, get the nuts and bolts correct, and then figure out where those gaps are, and maybe utilize something to leverage the AI to kind of fill that. But with so much of these transactions happening, technology is being thrown on top. Technology is being like, here, learn this and go. And they don't know that there's enough of that foundational work that's being done, and the training and the expertise that's applied. The whole concept of human in a loop, making sure that there is a human overseeing how is this coming together, and is it correct? Is it accurate before putting it out there?
And truthfully, I mean, that's a scary thing. Does the human even know how to supervise the technology?
Right.
I mean, you and I have seen behind the curtain on some professional practices. And if you're trying to overlay AI on Windows 95, you know that's out there. or your proprietary planning technology, which is Excel. I think you're going to see people who are trying to leap that chasm, all while trying to solve for succession. And oh, by the way, in the financial profession, like in accounting, there's a shortage of people. We don't have enough advisors coming up. So I think it could create, in the wealth management business, it's going to start planting some seeds of something's amiss here for clients. Like something's not quite right, and I don't know what it is. And I think the potential is the industry takes its eye off the ball, trying to solve for so many internal things that the client experience suffers.
Yes, I think we are absolutely witnessing that. There is there are a lot of distractions that are happening. Like you said, that convergence of the private equity, the convergence of the technology, and then on top of trying to solve for succession. A client recently that was sharing their tax experience this year, and they received their tax return. It didn't look right to them. And they reached out to the accountant before the tax filing deadline and said, "Can you review this? I don't think it's right." They owed thousands and thousands of dollars above and beyond what they were expecting to owe. And they even pinpointed it and said, "I think there's something wrong in this particular area. Take a look at it." They reached out 3 times before they got a response back 2 weeks after the tax deadline. And one of the comments from the accountant was, "I'm sorry I didn't get back to you sooner, but I trusted the technology."
Wow.
Yes. And the technology was wrong, and they had to file an amendment, now waiting for that refund to come back of, once again, thousands and thousands of dollars beyond what they should have paid. And it just, that one line just struck me, because this accountant set aside customer service and
Yes.
didn't respond for 2 weeks, and set aside their own expertise in trusting the technology above
Right.
and beyond the experience that they had built over a career lifetime. Because I know if they would have just looked at that return, it would have jumped out to them right away. And it didn't. It's the example of a firm that had a transaction a couple of years ago, and they have a new suite of technology, and they have a lot of retiring partners. And I know that they're, pinched, and it's challenging, but that is how it's showing up.
I don't know how a wealth management client is going to identify that. Like, how would you know if something was wrong? It's not like you get an extra bill from your financial advisor if they're a fee-based. It's not like you get an extra bill, or maybe you see it in cap gains or something like that. But it's just, I think the accountability part is going to be really challenging to see, to find out.
I don't know how you know. I think one of the ways that a triggering thought inside of your mind should be, if you're trying to figure out something yourself
Yes,
that
there
you
it is.
shouldn't
Yep.
have to figure out yourself. Like, you want to determine, should I convert some assets to a Roth? Should I start my Social Security? Should I, if you are Googling, you're asking the bots yourself, you're doing your own research, but yet you have a financial advisor, and especially if you have a CFP, a certified financial planner, you should not be the one diving into all of that research. That's when you know that the deliverables aren't there where they need to be.
Right. Because the advisor should be trying to address the issues that you have, be proactive in the planning process. But all of this it's planning for succession, it's planning for implementing technology, it's planning for staffing. It's all very inward facing and not outward facing. You're kind of given choices when you're creating efficiency in a business. I'm going to create more time in my day because of the use of artificial intelligence or other technology platforms. What do you do with that time? You can play more golf, you can serve more clients, or you can do more for the clients that you have. And I think the risk is that, especially in wealth management, the incentives might be to just do less.
Right. Right.
And that's why the growth piece is important. We've talked about, how do you replicate the client experience and do that for more people? But I think we're going to start to see more people coming out of the woodwork to say, if something's happened here and I don't know what it is. And I think we're starting to see, kind of identify what the catalysts are.
I do think that we have hit a place in our industry where it is easy to be complacent, and you time that once again with a number of financial advisors retiring and some shortcuts that might look fancy and flashy
Hmm.
available to us.
What do you mean by
Um,
shortcuts?
well, I mean, whether or not it's a piece of technology that promises to do all the things, and it's just kind of a plug and play,
Right.
but you don't have the appropriate amount of babysitting on that technology, understanding of what the input needs to be to get the correct
Hmm.
output and ensuring that output is accurate. Um, I think those are some of the shortcuts. Or if it's you know, thinking about retirement soon or not. I mean, it could also be somebody mid-career that says, I want to monetize my business now and I want to have more free time for myself. I think there's a level of, once again, that sort of coupled with the complacency in our industry, and it's showing up with a lack of service and lack of just a really great opportunity for client experience
Oh, it's a lack of accountability.
and accountability.
And that's again coming back to the deadline thing with accountants. There's an accountability to get it right because you have to file this thing. When does the accountability get introduced? And I think clients have to demand it. It's either incumbent upon the advisor to produce it, but the clients have to demand it too. And that's part of kind of hopefully raising the standards
I truly believe, though, a lot of what's happening right now is it's growing pains. I think that
for the
it's
industry.
for the industry, for a lot of professional services, as we said, with a number of professionals leaving the industry, like they have to solve in some way. They have to figure out a succession in some way. They have to figure out efficiencies in some way. And I think that there is a lot of effort that's being put into that, but just like investing, it has to be disciplined. You have to be consistent with that effort and not jump to a shortcut to get it done. But my hope is that clients will say, wait, I need more. I want more. I want that accountable party. And they will say this is not good enough, and they'll raise that bar and that expectation. And I do think that a lot of these professional services will grow along with that. But it's important for individuals to not just accept if something does not meet a standard.
Yeah. And I don't want this to be all about what we're against here. And we can talk for a minute about kind of what we're for on each one of these things. So when we talk about, having a private equity backing, things like
Hmm.
that, you and I have talked about our commitment to independence and how much that, and it doesn't just matter to us to be independent by itself, but to have the autonomy to make good decisions that mirror the best interests of our clients, best interests of our team, and not have that conflict of interest. I think that's been important and a big part of our culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's been one of the most fun things of
Yeah.
this business is figuring out that entrepreneurial
Oh
side
my
and
gosh.
and
Yeah.
inviting voices to the table, inviting
Right.
voices from, our employees that we work with, but also clients, and getting their feedback and then being able to be creative and curate
Yeah.
something that is going to show up well for clients. And if we make mistakes, owning it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's a huge piece of it too.
Then on the tech side, a lot of it is, like I said, what are you enhancing with the technology? Do you have process? Do you have good data? If so, then it becomes that much easier to use. But if you try and overlay it on something that doesn't exist, it's clunky.
Yeah, you have to be careful not to leapfrog too much.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on the staffing side, hiring before you need to.
That has always been something that we have talked about quite a bit, the capacity. And we're pretty open about our capacity with both clients and out in the community and in the industry around us. And we realize there's a trade-off for that,
Right.
but investing in the company, investing in our employees and our education and the tools and the technology to see it show up in positive ways is just incredible to watch.
Yeah. I can imagine some of the decisions we make in staffing or where and how we invest in our team and in the client experience wouldn't make sense to an outside investor, but they make all the sense in the world to the people who get impacted.
Right.
So I think this conversation today is about a potential canary in the coal mine. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we do see these forces converging now. Happy to be where we are and having these conversations. And also finding ways to solve for a myriad of conversations that we know families are having around money, and are going to, need trusted professionals in the future.
Yeah. Thank you for this, Dennis.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Simply Why, a podcast about money and purpose. We hope you enjoyed getting to know us, how we approach leading a financial advisory practice, and the work we do every day to help families and couples make important financial decisions.
Morton Brown Family Wealth is an SEC-registered investment advisor. This podcast is designed for educational and informational purposes and not intended as investment advice. More information can be found at www.mortonbrownfw.com. You'll see me there in my car before I come into the office. It's like, here we go.
Oversharing, Dennis.
I didn't say what I was listening to either. It's a lot of like Katy Perry and ABBA, just to get fired up. It's good. Good.
Because there are things that could be worse.
Maybe.
All right.